Well, this is not going to be a whole long thing, so I am pulling from our time of atonement. I'm going to pull from our time of atonement, and we're gonna talk some, because I always tell people, don't come to me with problems if you don't come to me with a solution. And so we should always be ready to think and think through answers to these problems that we're dealing with, right? And so we're going to talk a little bit today. Topic of message is going to be digging out of the hole. Digging out of the hole. Digging out of the hole. And think about this. We've been taught some stuff wrong. We all know that. And we're always trying to catch up and get back on track and get to where we need to be. So one thing we were taught is burying the hatchet, burying our problems, burying stuff. And the issue with this is when we bury our problems, when we bury our challenges, our issues, our struggles, our past sins, what do we end up with? A bigger problem, a bigger issue, a bigger sin, a bigger challenge. Why? The logic is simple. Sin is a seed. Sin is a seed. And so think about it. When we bury these things, what are they doing? They're germinating. What happens when something germinates? It dies so that it can bring forth even more life, right? So again, the logic is simple. Sin is a seed with a harvest. With a harvest. So we need to address these things as advised in the Torah. Let's turn now to Deuteronomy chapter 17. We're going to start reading at verse 1. We're going to read down to verse 6, verse 7. Deuteronomy chapter 17. Verse 1. Do not slaughter to Yahweh your Elohim a bull or sheep which has any blemish, any evil matter, for that is an abomination to Yahweh your Elohim. When there is found in your midst, in any of your cities, which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you, a man or a woman who does what is evil in the eyes of Yahweh your Elohim, in transgressing his covenant, and has gone and served other mighty ones, and bowed down to them, or to the sun, or to the moon, or to any of the host of the heavens, which I have not commanded, and it has been made known to you, and you have heard, and has searched diligently. Then see, if true, the matter is confirmed, that such an abomination has been done in Israel, then you shall bring out to your gates that man or woman who has done this evil matter, and you shall stone to death that man or woman with stones. At the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses shall he that is to die be put to death. He is not put to death by the mouth of one witness. The hand of the witnesses shall be first against him to put him to death, and the hand of all the people last. So you shall purge the evil from your midst. I'm going to read verse 7 again. The hand of the witnesses shall be first against him to put him to death, and the hand of all the people last. So you shall purge the evil from your midst. Digging out of the hole. So every now and then, our problems get roots, our issues, they get roots, right? And sometimes it's because they're seeds that we have sown. We have planted. We have opened up the earth, our bodies, our temples. We've opened them up and have allowed this to go in. And it's now inside that hole, that H-O-L-E, right? And it prevents us from being W-H-O-L-E. It prevents us from being whole because there is a hole. The place where that seed is now dying to live again, to regenerate, to bring forth after its own kind, right? Funny that midrash came up before I say nothing. But, so going to the root is extremely important, because how many of you know that if you want to kill a tree, you just pluck off the branches and the leaves? Don't make sense, right? What are you really doing? You're pruning it.
Helping it grow.
You're helping it grow. You're making it stronger. And so the goal is to get to the root of the problem. So let's see how we can dig up some of these things and handle them appropriately. And you always have to keep this in mind as well, because sometimes we get confused on what true deliverance looks like. And sometimes we think truly that deliverance is being free completely from an issue. Free completely, I don't think about it no more. It has nothing to do with me, so on and so forth. It has been buried. You get confused by that. But let's turn really quick to a couple people that are going to help us understand how to approach problems. First, Psalms 51:3. And let's hear what David has to offer us. And this, of course, being part of the reading that we did at Yom Kippur. How fitting is that? Psalms 51:3, for I know my transgressions and my sin is ever before me. So I know my transgressions. I know and understand them. I don't avoid them. I don't ignore them. I don't bury them. I know my transgressions and my sin is ever before me. Let's see how Shaul handled this. Let's go to Romans 7:21. Romans 7:21 says, I find therefore this law, that when I wish to do the good, that the evil is present with me. That this evil is still present. We also know and understand that even with Shaul, that he went through a time when he had as what he called a thorn in his side. And he said that Yahweh, your grace is sufficient. We know that even Yaakov walked, even after he completed his struggle with the messenger of Yahweh, that he walked, therefore, into that place of promise, even still with a limp, right? With a limp. And Yaakov will walk into his place of promise with a limp. That's us, y'all. Sometimes we're going to walk with that thorn. We're going to keep it there. Why? Because it is a reminder of what Shaul said, that his grace is sufficient. And that sometimes it's necessary for us to have the scar. Why? Because when we see it, when we touch it, it's as David spoke in Psalm 51:3, it's ever before me. It reminds me not to revisit that path. It reminds me of the consequence of going down that road. So instead of me wanting to be completely erased from my memory, those struggles, those problems, those challenges, those things that I want to bury, I'm confusing myself by burying them. Why am I confusing myself? Because they keep coming back, and when I act like I forgot it, then it comes back even stronger. So I've lost all control of it. I have lost the ability to control it. I have lost my ability. I'm so far out of touch with it. I'm convincing myself that I'm superhuman. I'm convincing myself that I can do this without the grace of Yahweh. Not possible. Not possible. So we have to be ready to dig up some of these unrighteous seeds and discard them. And by that, I don't want you to get confused with the understanding that Yahweh allows the planting with the darnel and the planting of a field where he says, let the wheat and the tare grow together. And in the end, I'll do the separating. This is where we're going back to Deuteronomy. We ourselves, matter of fact, let's turn back there. Let's turn back there real quick because I need that to be up front in your minds. Deuteronomy 17 and 7. We're going to go straight to the 7th verse. Answer me this very easy open book test question. Whose hand is first? The witnesses. What is the goal of the putting of this person to death? Purge the evil from your midst. So, let's take this very personal. And let's take this very intimately. And let's say, who is usually the very first witness of that evil that needs to be purged? Yeah. Now, that's witness number one. And so this is what I get out of that. That I need to be the person uprooting that evil seed that has been planted and that is attempting now to establish itself in the soil of my being. That I have attempted at burying this problem and this issue and not facing it and acting as if it doesn't exist. But truly, my hand needs to be the first to dig it out of the hole. That my hand needs to be the first to putting it to bed in me. My hand first. Not that I want somebody else to solve my problems. Not that I assume that Yahweh says, oh, well, Yeshua came and he says, cast all your cares on him because he cares for you. Misinterpretation anyway. Because that care is not my problems. That is cast your love on him because he loves you. Now, the burden that he tells us to bear is not the problems of the world, but the burden that he tells us that his burden is easy, his yoke is easy and his burden is light, is that which he is bound to, which is the obedience of Yahweh. That's the yoke of Yeshua. That's the burden of Yeshua. Shaul cleared it up for us when he said, I am a prisoner. I am a prisoner unto the gospel of Yeshua, Messiah. And so we have to find ourselves in that place where we are determined to be the first person, the first. You're the first witness. You're the first witness. Let's go now. Let's turn to 2 Corinthians. Because something else we need to understand is that at some point this thing got real deep, y'all. At some point it was just as simple as, hey, don't do this, don't do that. At some point this thing got seeded up in us and it's been growing for generations now. And it's hard work trying to get to it, but we've got to understand what we're fighting. 2 Corinthians chapter 10. 2 Corinthians chapter 10. Let's start at verse 3. And we're going to read down to 6. 2 Corinthians 10:3. For though we walk in the flesh, we do not fight according to the flesh. For the weapons we fight with are not fleshly, but mighty in Elohim for overthrowing strongholds, overthrowing reasonings and every high matter that exalts itself against the knowledge of Elohim, taking captive every thought to make it obedient, to the Messiah, and being ready to punish all disobedience when your obedience is complete. Please understand what that's saying. We need to be ready to be the first to put it to death.
That's right.
We need to be prepared and ready to address and dig that seed up out of the ground. And dig ourselves out of this hole that we found ourselves in. Not burying it, but as Yahweh said to Cain, after he committed this crime, and he said that sin is crouching at your door, and its desire is for you, but you must master it. Its desire is to control you, but you must control it. And you don't control something by planting it and burying it and getting rid of it out of your mind. Why? Because guess where it is? It's just waiting for its opportunity to come back even stronger than it was the first time. And so instead of burying it and acting like it doesn't exist, Shaul says right here, he says that we ought to be ready to take captive every thought and make it obedient to the Messiah. And be ready to punish all disobedience when your obedience is complete. And how do we do that? What is the weapon? What is the weapon that Shaul is speaking of? Well, it's Ephesians 6:17. Take also the helmet of deliverance and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of Elohim. The word of Elohim. That is the sword. That's what we can fight with. That's what we can dig with. That's what we can go against those thoughts and take those thoughts captive. They can only be cuffed and contained by the word. And we know that when we talk about the word, we're not just making something up, right? It's not just some good sayings here or there, but it is the words that proceeded from the mouth of Yahweh. So powerful that Yeshua himself, being the incarnate word, says that that's what we need in order to live. Right? And so we have to understand. Let's turn real quick. Understand how these seeds work. Let's turn to Isaiah 55:11. We're going to jump around just a little bit and bring this in. Isaiah 55. It says, so is my word that goes forth from my mouth. It does not return to me empty, but shall do what I please and shall certainly accomplish that which I sent it for. Speaking of, matter of fact, let's read 10. Because that is very important to understand. So I'm going to start back at 10. For as the rain comes down and the snow from the heavens, and do not return there, but water the earth, and make it bring forth and bud, and give seed to the sower, and bread to the eater, so is my word that goes forth from my mouth. It does not return to me empty, but shall do what I please, and shall certainly accomplish what I sent it for. So understanding that just as Yahweh spoke at the beginning and created, those were seeds going forth in the earth, bringing forth fruit, that Yahweh made us in his image. And we speak and our words go forth. That's why we have to be careful what we speak over our children. We have to be careful what we speak over our spouses. We have to be careful what we speak over our brethren, over each other. Because these seeds that we're sowing, we want to make sure they come back right. Let's look at what can be sown in a couple places. One, Job 4:8. Job chapter 4, verse 8. According to what I have seen, those who plow wickedness and sow suffering reap the same. Those who plow wickedness and sow suffering reap the same. Let's go to Ecclesiastes 11:6. Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verse 6. It says, sow your seed in the morning, and until evening do not let your hand rest, since you do not know which prosper, this or that, or whether both alike are good. Sow your seed in the morning, and until evening do not let your hand rest, since you do not know which prosper, this or that, or whether both alike are good. Something that Rabbit said a long time ago was we have to be careful of the seeds that we sow, because we don't know if they're perennials or annuals. That we can sow seeds in our life, and we just finished reading in Job where this can be seeds of wickedness, right? And are those seeds that will bring forth a harvest on an annual basis. That every time we simply go to the ground and chip at the stem, we're just getting it ready for its next season. We're just preparing it to come back bigger, stronger. So we have to be very careful in that which we sow, because we never know which one gives much fruit. Yeah, I think that's it. So let's go back here where we began, Deuteronomy 17. Again, understanding and knowing in verse 7 that there's a level of accountability that Yahweh has placed within each and every one of us. Not just to hold each other accountable, but what I'm seeing more in this than anything is for us to begin better job, more due diligence in holding ourselves accountable. In that we are that witness. And we are the first hand in our own correction, in our own instruction. Because at the end of the day, digging ourselves out of this hole, digging these seeds out of this hole is not just important to us here, but it's important to our generations. It's important to those who are coming after us. Why? Because they will deal with the fruit. And not just the first level of fruit, because something tells me that the things that we are having to deal with today and the struggles that we're having to face today are just that much stronger. That they have that much more of a hold. Why? Because it's had a lot of time to regenerate and regenerate and regenerate. And guess what happens? It gets stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And so we can't allow the seed of sin to continue. And we can't convince ourselves that by burying it, I've gotten rid of it. By burying it in my memory, as long as I don't remember it or think about it long enough, then I'm doing good. But I promise you I promise you that that's a formula for disaster. It's a formula for disaster. Why? And how do I know? Again, it's a very simple concept. When you plant something, when you bury something, you planted it. You're waiting for the harvest now. So just because you think you've forgotten about it doesn't mean that it's over. But let's take David as our example. And what David says, my sin is ever before me. Why? Because I'm dealing with it. I'm facing it. I'm controlling it. Just like in 2 Corinthians, where we read that the weapons of our warfare are that powerful. It's powerful enough to overthrow these strongholds. It's powerful enough to put in check those things that have been out of balance. It's powerful enough to dig up the seed. It's powerful enough to go down to the root and extract the root. Why? So that it cannot continue to grow. So that it does not continue to come back and present itself as a stronghold. You know that little saying they got, where they say, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. We want to know and understand, not just, and this is what Shaul was saying, even when he says, sin is ever before me, the evil is ever before me. When I want to do good, evil is right there. It's right there, but you know what? It's there, I know where it is, it's in check, and now I can go and do the good that I was created to do. I'm not going to bury it and act like it doesn't exist. And I think sometimes that's how we deal with our problems, is we bury it and we just try to forget about it. Ignore it long enough and it will go away. All the time it's back there doing push-ups, pull-ups, chin-ups. You ignoring it and it's getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And this time when it lays hands on you, you thought you was dealing with something then. So y'all, let's dig out of this hole. Let's dig out of this hole together. That's what we're here for, because it wasn't just that individual. It wasn't just that individual hand, but it was also those around him. And so this is another reason we need each other in the area of accountability. And we need to understand and know what accountability in love looks like. We need to know and understand what that looks like in love. Because it is not unto death, right? We don't attempt to kill each other. We want the evil to cease to exist from our midst. We need our brothers. We need our brothers. And so, again, we're digging out of this hole. Amen.